things that Eddie talked about was the jurisdictional issues, the fact that we work with the provincial and the federal and the municipal and the First Nations. And one of the things that the Green Party proposes is that we come together, those four governments come together, and we form a council of governments so that so many of these issues that matter the most, the ones that everyone is saying, oh, sorry, not my job, the ones that no one wants to take ownership of, that they will be dealt with in these local councils where everyone is at the table to discuss these issues, and there's no wiggling out because it's somebody else's job, because we're all in the room and we figure it out. And at this moment in time, we have one person in British Columbia that is really standing out for us. Somebody who is stepping up and, as Eddie said, presented the wild salmon petition, has also stood up many times as the only voice in the legislature standing up for the voiceless, for the environment, looking past the short-term questionable financial gain, looking past games of politics and looking deeper at what really matters. So I am very honored that Andrew Weaver, our MLA from Victoria, has made the trip over, especially for this event tonight. Thank you so much, Andrew. We were out, Andrew joined me canvassing in the neighborhood just before we came here, and we had lots of fun. Come on up, Andrew. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lynne, and thank you, Cheyenne, and thank you, Eddie. I met Eddie recently when the petition was presented to the legislature, and it was an interesting petition because I thought I was getting 100,000 signatures, it'd be a little disc or something, but it was petitions that were literally this big. And it was fun handing those in the legislature because I warned the people in advance because they knew I'm not supposed to give that big a thing, but they put the big guy. He came up to collect it because he knew it was going to be a big one. So it was very well received. So thank you to that. Thank you, Cheyenne, for welcoming us here onto your traditional territory. Especially thank you to Lynne for stepping up to actually put her name on the ballot to make a difference. Now Lynne, when I look at Lynne, I see a lot of me in Lynne. Like, she's sitting there at the Simon Fraser University with a very comfortable job as a scientist with tenure at a university, full professor, grad students, lots of research grant funding. She doesn't need to go into politics. She's set for life. Why is she doing this? She's doing this because she realizes that when we look at our traditional politicians, the single most important thing that's in their mind is getting reelected. They're not thinking about the long-term consequences of the decisions that they're making. Which is why I think you see such a resonance between the Green Party, both provincially and federally, with First Nations in British Columbia across Canada, is that fundamental to being a Green Party member is that we believe our decisions that we make must reflect the long-term consequences that are being made. We're not here to get re-elected. If I don't get elected in 2017, my salary doubles. Great. Don't elect me. I double my salary. And it'll be maybe not, you get paid a little bit better in federally than we are provincially. But there are people who realize that to make a difference, you have to step up and be part of the change and offer people an alternate to this traditional vision, this dichotomy of left versus right, this offer people something to vote for instead of voting against. And Lynne is doing that here. It was really, really, really exciting canvassing today. I mean, I thought I walked into a green love fest. In this, literally, like we walked in there and, you know, one guy was watching the Seahawks and he said, look, I tell you what, if you let me shut the door, I'm going to vote green guaranteed because the Seahawks are on. I said, okay. But then, a few minutes later, the Seahawks went up and they were 3-0 ahead. He ran out and shouted on the street, vote green, everybody. It was quite fun to be there. Of course, Lynne had signs going up left, right, and center. But the reason we went into a neighborhood that was filled with lots of kids, lots of young children, it was not a neighborhood of grumpy union activists from the 1970s still trying to fight the 1960s problems. It was a bunch of young families who wanted to make a difference, who wanted to look out for their children and the life that they would inherit. So it was a lot of fun. You know, when I went into politics, everyone thought I was crazy. As I'm sure your colleagues think at SFU that you're crazy. And everyone said you haven't got a chance to get elected. You haven't got a chance. You're up against the machinery of the NDP, the machinery of the Conservatives and Liberals. You're just with the Green Party. Nobody's going to, you might get a few dreadlock people who smoke marijuana voting for you, but no one else is going to support you. I had that in Oak Bay Gordon Head, one of the most conservative ridings in the province of British Columbia. A Liberal cabinet minister had been there for 17 years. We actually had Scott Wallace, who was the only lone Conservative Party member of the BC Parliament, government legislature there for quite some time before that. Everyone said the same thing, vote splitting, oh, I can't vote for you, Andrew, because the Liberals will get in. Oh, I can't vote for you, Andrew, because the NDP will get in. We had that on the doorstep. But then something happened, is that people went, after a while, we got a few signs up, people started saying, hey, well, they're voting. The next thing we realized is that what we were attracting is not only people who were fed up, giving them something to vote for, but there's the single biggest demographic out there is the non-voter, the person who doesn't vote. The person who doesn't vote got more votes than any other party in the last federal election, same provincially. So what did we do is we gave them something to vote for. And I'm really pleased, more than anything else than getting elected, that's secondary, is what I can say is that how we won, why we won, is we had the highest voter turnout in the province of British Columbia. We had 70% voter turnout in Oak Bay Gordon Head, which was the highest in BC. The second highest is my friend and colleague, who you would know, Adam Olson, from the Tsartnik Nation. 69% voter turnout. And the only reason why the NDP won in that riding, when you hear this on the doorstep, vote splitting. The only reason that Gary Holman is sitting in the legislature today is because Adam Olson took so many votes from the Liberals that Gary Holman came up the middle. That won't happen next time because Adam Olson will win because there were still the vote split thing. We've had so much support in Victoria. When you go to Victoria and you canvass there for Joanne Roberts, I mean, there's a change happening. It's not here. I thought I was in Victoria literally today canvassing in those townhouses. I was going strong green, Rome slide, strong green, wheat green, undecided, given some pamphlets, have a chat, oh, maybe I'll vote green. It was kind of Victoria. Something is happening in BC, and it's really exciting to be part of it. And I hope, Eddie, I hope that First Nations in British Columbia recognize that they can swing the direction of what is happening in Ottawa if they vote. If the youth vote. I mean, only 30% of youth vote. Yet they have to live the consequences of the decision being made, and the people making those decisions don't have to live the consequences of those decisions. So you only have, when I say you, it's not you, but the youth have themselves, in some sense, to blame for some of these problems, because we know that 70 to 80% of people over the age of 65 vote. And when you are older, you don't vote for change. Your life, if I ask, Letitia here, where are you going to live in 10 years? You're not going to know. How many children are you going to have? You may not know. You may know. Who are you going to marry? You may not know. Are you going to marry? I don't know. Where are you going to work? You don't know. You're going to have one car, two cars. You won't know. Where are you going to be? This uncertainty is essentially part of your entire life before you as a youth. So you can vote for change because uncertainty is okay. Now, if I ask somebody here who's 70 years old, where are you going to live 10 years from now? And I bet you're going to live where you are. How many children do you have? Well, you know, because you ain't having no more children at that age. And on and on and on. And you typically are living certainty, and you vote for more certainty. So we will never deal with the grand challenges of our time unless we get those in our society who recognize the importance of dealing with these grand challenges, the youth of today. First Nations who have recognized this for decades and centuries and millennia, that these grand challenges are part of their culture. And those people who are in the elder demographic, the seniors of today. And the challenge I give out to youth is to go and talk to your grandparents. And that I say that because there are a lot of grandparents out there who will vote for their grandchildren, and parents won't listen to you, but your grandparents will. If the youth of today could convince their grandparents parents to vote for them, oh my goodness, we would have a different form of government in this country. We would have a different form of government in British Columbia, and we'd have a different form of government in a whole bunch of places. So this is a really exciting opportunity. I mean, if today is any indication of what's in store for Lynne Quarmby, we're going to have her sitting in Ottawa. We're going to have Joanne Roberts in Victoria, who you may know. We're going to have Brenda Sayers. Oh my goodness, she is so amazing. Running up in the North Island in Vancouver. Fran Hunt-Ganucci, she is going to win that riding of Cowichan. I don't even know what it's called. It's Cowichan and around.
Langford, Malahat, Cowichan.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of areas. We're going to have Elizabeth May. Well, that's a no-brainer. I don't even waste my time canvassing for Elizabeth because she's so going to get elected. Frances Littman, Claire Martin. These are first-rate people who don't need politics. They don't need politics, but they're giving to politics. So I urge you to support them, tell your friends to support these people, because you can win. Elizabeth is proof. She inspired me. I want some science guy who, my claim to fame was science, and in high school I was on the chess team, so I had no aspirations for politics, let me tell you, and I would have thought you were crazy as I'm playing chess in BC, chess stuff. I would have thought you were crazy to say I'd be in politics. People can do that if you're actually authentic, you're honest, you trust, you speak with integrity, and you essentially give people what your opinion is. And that's what the Green Party offers, and that's what Lynne offers. And that's why I'm so excited to be supportive of Lynne. I see Adriane walked in here. And Adriane, and so many other wonderful Greens. I like to summarize, I'll just say, when people ask, what is the Green Party? I will say one thing. A bunch of nice people who want to make the world a better place. And I think that summarizes us. We're not in here for the money. We're not in here for the vested interest. We're not in here to line our pockets. If I wanted to line my pockets, I'd actually stay in the university and buy stock in a couple of companies that I think I know are going to go places. I can't buy stock. We're here because we really want to make a difference, because we believe that we can make a difference. All the solutions to our grand challenges are out there. What's lacking is a political will. And with that, I'll thank you, and I really, really hope you give Lynne 150% of all the ability you can, because we need her in Ottawa.
So many of the people you'll talk with in this riding will say there's choices. There's other parties running. We don't want Harper to be re-elected. There's pressure to vote strategically. And my answer to that is this: that we will never get the politics we want or the country we want if we always keep voting for the kind of second best or the alternative that might win based on some polling that is kind of iffy at best against somebody we really hate. If we vote for what we think is tolerable or okay, that's all we're ever going to get. Tolerable or okay, and it's not going to make the change happen. When I was leader of the Green Party in BC now 15 years ago, I was asking David Suzuki to run, actually not even then, even when I was deputy leader of the Green Party Canada, asking David Suzuki to run. And he said, well, Adriane, Jack Layton's been to my home asking me to run for the NDP. And I said, David, will the NDP, even if they form a majority, take this country to where it needs to go? And he goes, you're right, Adriane, they won't. They might do better than the Conservatives, but they won't take it to where we need to go. We have precious little time to get where we need to go. One other comment on that. What got me to actually re-enter Green politics, there was an NDP majority in BC. They were direction drilling under our provincial parks for oil and gas in the north. They were opening up the offshore of this coast to the potential of drilling under our Pacific coastal waters. They had a war in the woods going on where they were bringing jobs back in the woods. And in one of those cases, I was working with my husband here, Paul George, in the Wilderness Committee. In one of those cases, we were working to protect an area north of Whistler, the Elaho Valley. And there were young people out there who were doing, like Lynne did, standing up on principle, nonviolent civil disobedience. And the loggers sent in a bunch of their people, and they beat these kids up. They destroyed their camp. They burnt it down. I headed to Victoria, NDP government, I talked to Ujjal Dosanjh, she was Attorney General at the time, I said, you have to lay off the logging. The reason they were logging was because the NDP cut a deal with Interfor to put workers back in at the mill, gave them unlimited raw log exports to just get some workers in the mill and in the wood that was in the heart of this area that the young people were trying to protect. So you've got to just put a moratorium on the logging, alleviate the tension in that area and work out a deal. And the Premier, at that time, an NDP Premier, got up in the House and he said, I understand the frustration of the loggers. Think about that. When the NDP are asking you for their support, think about that. They are not going to get you, neither the Liberals and certainly not the Conservatives are going to turn it around, and we need to turn it around in this country and on this planet for the sake of our children. Bob Brown, one of the preeminent Green politicians in the world, in Australia, founded the Green Party, led it as a senator there, said to me, Adriane, the difference between the Green Party and the other parties is this. The other parties will do what needs to be done in their minds to get the most seats in the next election. And the Green Party will always do what needs to be done to put a smile on the face of their children.
But it's young voters and youth voters and the importance of getting the youth today to really step up and engage politically. And I do agree that I think we have a lot of our own responsibility to take for not stepping in. I mean, I would tell you briefly of I was living in Vancouver during the last city municipal elections, and I caught myself doing something which I think is very typical of our generation, which was to sit there going like, yeah, but you know, my vote's probably not going to matter, so maybe whatever. And then I had this moment where I realized that my friends would actually kill me if I told them that I didn't go out to vote in that election. But beyond that too, I've been thinking a lot about this during this last election, and something that I have very distinctly, and maybe it's just my family, but I don't think it is. It took me until I was about the age of 22 to feel like I wasn't constantly being told that I was too young to have a political opinion, that my political thinking wasn't really grounded in experience or wild. And so I think one thing we can do to really begin affecting a shift, maybe it's not going to have the most dramatic impact on this immediate election, but we've talked a lot about long-term impact, and I think one of the shifts we can make, and I see this a lot because I work a lot with youth in spoken word and poetry slam, is to really remind the youth that actually their opinions do matter, that they are politically insightful, that they are aware, that they should be speaking out about things that they care about, and that we should listen to them. And no matter what age people are at, you know, I think just reinforcing that people have valuable political contributions to make, and so I think that would be one thing that might really help any group of people, just get the youth out to vote, is to let them know that you know, what they have to say matters. Second to that, I mean, that was one of the reasons why I got into spoken word, and science has come up a lot. And one of the things I've been raised a lot within science. Science fascinated me a lot, so I've always been happy that as a spoken word artist, I can actually do poems that get scientists kind of riled up. I think these seem like things that are very disconnected from each other, and it's something this poem I'm about to do deals with things that seem like they're completely disconnected from each other, but actually have really strong impacts on each other. Same way as we talked about the environment and the economy, or in just my own, I gotta slip this in there because I feel like it's something that as an artist I have to put out there, or the arts and the economy. And one of the things that we don't, when we look at the current political paradigm in which we have people who talk a lot about the economy and what's good for the economy, one thing I've really noticed since I got into the arts professionally is that for about 30 or 40 years, arts organizations have been producing fairly reliable, consistent studies showing that governments that fund the arts see a return. There's an economic benefit to funding the arts. And so scientists have been damaged. I think we live in a time now where we can see clearly the arts have also been thrown completely under the bus. And it's important. It's important for artists to have, and for Canadian culture to be generated by people that aren't kowtowing to the industry, to private interests and that sort of thing. But it also is good for the economy. And as much as that might not seem intuitively obvious, it's something for us to bear in mind. So this poem is about two things that might not seem like they're intuitively connected. I just think that that's a huge theme of why we're here, why we're supporting the Greens, and something that is important to carry out into the world, and to be able to engage with people about complex, interrelated matters. See, someone explained to me once that fish need bicycles, and that might seem strange, and though I am neither a bike mechanic nor a marine biologist, I think I figured out that it's true. Now, of course, to begin at the beginning, it should be patently obvious that bicycles need fish, for without fish, bicycles would have no purpose to serve, no direction. There'd be no one to make them go places in life, for without fish, no animal would have gone to land, following the wake of plants and bacteria, and so no supposedly found ape would have fallen from the womb straight onto its big fancy bike-building head. And thus probably, without fish, I wouldn't be here speaking to you right now. And certainly, without fish, our population could never have exploded as it has since yesterday, since that explosion was predicated upon the building of machines, and machines were built upon the well-picked backbones of fish. And bicycles, let us remember, are machines. Although it appears that somewhere along the ride, some bikes got it into their heads that they didn't really need fish. They forgot who made them, and maybe some who made them forgot their mother's long journeys from the sea, and so understandably the fish started saying, well, obviously bicycles are useless. But it should be patently obvious to anybody with eyes the ways in which fish need bicycles. Simply picture the deep sea grave of the Exxon Valdez still leaking into the sea. See the Gulf's blues blacken, the yellow sea slicken, the Niger Delta becoming fuel for future deserts. Picture empty fishing nets in acid-wash ocean. See the waters of life becoming sticky elastic with petroleum plastic, becoming clogged with all of our greasy runoff, our too much, too little, too late. See how we are building fish watery graves, oily slick with toxic bitumen slicks. And you will see how fish need bicycles, because fish need humans to start riding bicycles. More. A lot more. Almost exclusively, in fact. Fish need humans to build an altar to the bicycle, to raise the value of distance again, to forget the roar of engines and feel the rush in our hair, to know that the work it takes to ride anywhere is what makes it worthwhile to get there.
Wow, thank you, Johnny. Okay, so the rest of the evening is yours, and I apologize that I didn't leave you so much. However, we're here for questions. I'm sure Andrew and Adriane, perhaps even Johnny, if you have your questions, we're here for you.
I'd like Andrew to tell the group what he just shared with me, because I think it's an important issue that we're all facing in the canvassing, and I thought his response was very, very helpful.
Come on up, Andrew.
I was asked about what do you do on the doorstep when you're told, I'm concerned about vote splitting. So there's the argument, we had that in Big Gordon Head from day one all along. I'm worried about the vote split. And so the argument is very simple. First off, there's about 4 levels of argument. Number 1 is the single biggest demographic of voter is the non-voter. The evidence is really clear when you have a strong Green candidate, whether it be, Big Gordon Head, well, that sounds a bit odd, but I mean, Elizabeth May, New Brunswick, or Prince Edward Island, the voter turnout goes up. So with 70% voter turnout, we elected a Green, and we had the highest voter turnout in the province. Elizabeth May was one of the highest in the country, I think second highest at 74% voter turnout in Saanich and the Gulf Islands. Adam Olsen had 69%. Number 3 is this whole talk of voter suppression, voter strategic voting and vote splitting actually feeds into the Harper narrative. It is a form of voter suppression that is incredibly effective. When you say you need to vote strategically, or you need to think about vote splitting, you're actually causing voter apathy and voter turnoff. And it actually feeds the Harper narrative. They love you to talk about vote splitting because people don't vote. And when people don't vote, Harper wins because his vote's going to come out. And the so-called progressive voter, the one who wants change, will not know who to vote for. Did I add something else on top of that?
No, I think that was the gist.
Yeah,
well,
so I
the
mean,
other thing is you said Greens take.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah.
Liberals and Conservatives, all of them, or some of them, will vote Green.
Well, I look at how I got elected. I got elected in probably the most conservative riding in all of the province of British Columbia. with a 17-year sitting cabinet minister with a Liberal government and a Conservative before that. You can't win that riding without having strong Conservative support. But you also can't win that riding without having strong NDP traditional support. Greens bring people from all across the political spectrum. And the reason why is because, frankly, that this left versus right dichotomy is really just left over from the Cold War. We have real problems facing society today. And what does it mean to be left or right? It's meaningless. Left versus right, that whole paradigm, this Cold War, fight the nuclear weapons over the past kind of paradigm. Now we need real solutions to real problems, and frankly, these problems don't know whether you're traditionally NDP, Conservative, Liberal, or Green. They want solutions, and they want honest discourse based on real discussion with people, and they want real people running for politics. They do not want to have these career politicians who own all they do. I mean, I like to bring it. What I love about the Green Party is so many people with a different bag of tricks and a different toolkit. You can imagine a bunch of Green MLAs, they all go to the table and they all put their toolkit on the table and they open it up and they all have a different bunch of tools. Like I have wrenches and spanners and Lynne will have different ones and Elizabeth has different ones. Half these other people, the only tools they have in their toolkit is I've been a politician all my life. Or I'm a lawyer. We've got enough lawyers and career politicians in politics. What we need is other views. And that actually inspires people to come out to vote, and when people come out to vote, Greens get elected.
If I can add to that too, that was a brilliant explanation. But in terms of the toolkits, what I see is that the other parties, the individual MLA or MP is not asked to provide their tools at all.
Right.
They're told, this is the way you're going to vote. Elizabeth describes it brilliantly by being in Parliament and seeing the clerks running around delivering the voting instructions to every table, and sometimes being very anxious that they're going to put the wrong voting instructions on a table that belongs to a different MP than it should be. And she said, sometimes they come and they snatch them away and the party's made a decision they're going to vote some way differently on some clause, and so, they're just constantly coming and going with different voting instructions. So, I think that's to keep in mind as well.
I've sat for 2.5 years in the legislature. The NDP have not voted. They voted together every single time. Even on principle, they're voting against everything they believe in, but they vote together.
Right.
Same with the Liberals. The only time the Liberals did not vote en masse was for one piece of legislation which would allow, it's actually a subsection of a bill, that would allow gender identity to be changed on your birth certificate. There were some who were fundamentalist Christians from the Fraser Valley who that went against their Christian values. So they voted against that bill, 4 of them. But every other vote's being blocked. But that wouldn't happen in the Green caucus.
Right, absolutely not. And so, just to add also, some of you know that after I was Deputy Leader of Weaver and Adriane Carr, ran locally and elected in Vancouver by the skin of my teeth in the first election in 2011. I got in by 90 votes, and we're talking, I think 48,000 votes is what I got. So 90 votes, that's a very slim margin. And then this last election in 2014, I was elected with 74,000 votes, the top of all the councillors, in fact, the most votes of any councillor ever in the history of Vancouver. Wow. But those votes didn't come from the Green base, they came from the people who voted all sorts of other, mixes. I know some voted just Green, or some voted Green and Cope, or some voted Green and NPA, or Green and Vision. I mean, it was, as Andrew said, it was just people who I think saw in me, a voice that resonated and, the kind of decision maker they wanted to see at the table. And that's why, we need to elect more Greens everywhere that happens, and that's why the other parties are so afraid of Greens getting elected. They realize once we are elected, people see the wisdom of that choice because they are people who, as I love that phrase you use, Andrew, which is instead of what the other parties do, which is decision-making, decision-based fact-making or evidence-making. So, you make a decision and you find all the evidence for it. That it really is, evidence that, or evidence-based decision-making, where you go out and you find the information first and you keep an open mind. One last thing that I want to say around strategic voting. I know it's on everybody's minds. The problem with strategic voting, and it is the fundamentally biggest problem, is it's always based on polling. They have an or on the previous election. And as Elizabeth may, or as Andrew, or as myself will say, or any of the Greens that have been elected, when you're the first one to get elected, of course, the previous election polls or results are no basis to predict your election. I don't know what the Greens got in the riding.
10%.
10%. Same with Elizabeth in her riding, and then both of you went on to with really strong
41%.
results. Absolutely. So when the other parties or even other agencies are saying the Greens don't have a chance based on previous election results, well, if you base it on previous election results, fine. But this is not a previous election. This is the new world. This is new politics. This is, a country which is aching for people to be elected who understand the climate crisis and who will push as hard as any individual possibly could push for action on that file and so many other files. And the thing you need to know about polling is this. They are less and less reliable. As the previous provincial election showed, in that election, everybody thought the NDP were going to win. The pollsters all predicted it. And no, they did not win. And I've spent many a time talking to pollsters now who say, look, what we do is we don't do real face-to-face or phone calls anymore to random people. That's the way polling used to be done. What we've got is a pool of people who have said they will answer polls. And those people we have profiled, and then we pick so many from one region and another region, so many men, so many women, so many different demographics, as you get to some people like youth who don't typically say, yeah, I'm free to answer polls. Well, the percentage of those to get an accurate read, you're going to the same people over and over, and they're the people who say, yeah, I'll answer polls. I mean, that's not random. That's not reflective of the population. So the ability to predict with accuracy is really, really low. And pollsters actually all know that. So don't read the missives that come into your email box or the news articles that I'm starting to see appear from different groups saying, we've done polls and in these 7 swing ridings or 15 swing ridings, they don't even mention the Greens. Greens don't have a chance because it's from the last election or because of the method of the polling. You have to trust your heart.
Leave now had me finishing third.
Yeah, leave now.
Because, well, as did 308.com,
Yeah.
they had me not even competitive.
Yeah.
Because they base it solely on the previous poll,
Yeah.
and they both how you did the last election, the Greens did, and then they base it on national averages. It's just meaningless.
Yeah, they didn't predict that I would win in 2011
That's
either,
right.
or Elizabeth. In fact, the media even said she couldn't even be elected in the dog catcher.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to answer that.
Eddie had his hand up.
Yeah.
Thanks, Adriane.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cynicism about politics right now, and the trick to get the non-vote out is to really educate people about the green vision. The green vision really shows an alternative to what we've been experiencing. What I'd like to know is what is the Green Party's position regarding donations from the business community and corporations?
So federal election rules prohibit us accepting any corporate donations. So that would likely, I think that's a wonderful rule, and I hope we can hold on to that one. I don't think Harper's been able to change that. Yeah.
Provincially, though, it's a free-for-all. Anybody, anywhere in the world, any corporation, union, or person can donate any amount, anytime they want to anybody.
So locally in Vancouver, we chose to not accept donations from any development industry or fossil fuel-based industry or tobacco or trades in armaments, any of those kinds of industries, and particularly the developers. I think Coke was also a party, but we were the two parties that said no donations from developers. Too many of the decisions at the council table are about opportunities to allow developers to make an awful lot of money, and I don't want to have my hands tied by having accepted any money from those developers. Yeah.
Can you talk about Site C a little bit?
Site C, yeah, so my understanding is that at this point in time, we definitely don't need the energy. And that as we go into the future, that same amount of energy could be provided in British Columbia by distributed wind farms. So we could build a wind farm at a time as the energy was needed in the place that it was needed. I think there is no excuse for Site C. We, as climate change, let's fantasize a green majority government, and we do the maximum we can do to reduce our emissions as quickly as we can. We know that we've already committed ourselves to serious climate change based on what we've already done. We need that farmland. We need that farmland. We need the river. We need that environment intact. We need the water. That dam would be very, very short-sighted, and I stand strongly with all those who are in opposition. Any more questions? Yeah.
Do you know what's going on with the Elections Canada website? Because my daughter just turned 18, has been trying, she's not going to be here on October 19th, she's going to be out of the country. She's trying to get registered, can't do it. You know, she goes through the whole process and then it comes back and says we cannot verify your information.
Yeah, I have started hearing stories of people that have been calling Elections Canada, not been able to get through, people having trouble on the website. One report that I read said that they just weren't ready. They were caught off guard by the early grid drop. Yeah, it's going to be a serious problem. I think that one thing that we are all anticipating is there are going to be lots of attempts at voter suppression. I think it's going to be very hard in the polling stations. We're going to have lots of volunteers there to assist people with their ID. We're trying to encourage as many people as possible to vote at advanced polls, so that if there is any problem with your registration or your ID, that you have time to get that fixed so that you can get in and vote. I'm starting to hear these stories, yeah.